Distinguished fratres and sorors, greetings, and welcome to the first Grand Administrators E-Forum for the calendar year 2021. It's a pleasure to be here once again. And today's E-Forum is with the theme, The Mystical Life. It comes on the backdrop of the last one, which was Natal Days and New Year Resolution. My name is Sarah Nefertiti Ohimain, and I remain the moderator of these sessions. To start off, permit me to remind us of the ground rules. All microphones will be muted by default to help minimize background noise in order to avoid hallback effects. We should also be mindful of our backgrounds as we are being viewed from all over the world. Limit distractions and avoid multitasking as much as possible. And to ask questions and also comment, kindly utilize the Q&A section on your screen or click on the raise your hand feature on your screen for you to be unmuted so you can ask or comment directly. Also note that in line with cybersecurity policy, anonymous questions will not be attended to. Don't forget also that we are live on Amok Nigeria, our YouTube channel, and the link is being shared here in the chat area. Kindly share this link with our members who are unable to join us. And also, if you are experiencing network glitches, you can also join us on the YouTube channel. Questions and comments from there will also be treated. Thank you once again for joining us, and do have fun with us tonight. So on this note, we would like to welcome our most worthy Grand Administrator and Director of the Supreme Grand Lodge, Frater Kenneth U. Idiodi. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, Sarah Nefertiti. Greetings, dignitaries of our order, fratres and sorors. I greet you under the auspices of the Rose Cross and wish each and all of you a happy new calendar year 2021. Here in Africa, it is our customary practice to greet anyone we have not seen yet in a current year with the words Happy New Year, even when the year is almost ending sometimes. But we are still in the middle of the month of January. So I'm glad to say to all of you in this virtual e-forum on Zoom, Happy New Calendar Year 2021. The whole world has now witnessed the successful and positive inauguration, peaceful inauguration of the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden. Congratulations to America and Americans for overcoming a major political challenge of severe national test and trial in an effort to maintain the Union and remain as one, the United States of America. The victory and success of America and indeed any nation on earth is victory and success for our common humanity. Our immediate past virtual meeting on Zoom was hosted by us on the 30th of December, 2020. In that session, we discussed natal days and New Year resolutions. We tried to establish that every resolution enjoyed 3 New Year dates annually with the opportunity to make New Year resolutions. The first one is the natal day or birthday of the member. The second one is of March, while the third one, 1st of January in the Gregorian calendar. We stated that the best time to make a New Year resolution is on the natal day, as your birthday. The next best on the Rosicrucian New Year, the natural New Year, while the last option is on the 1st of January. We also philosophize that when discussing New Year resolution, we tend to think in terms of improving our character by dumping bad habits and replacing them with good ones. New Year resolutions may also be made in the area of improving attitude to work in the office, improving interpersonal relationships, skill acquisition, as well as improvement and satisfaction in business conditions, which include personal financial discipline. I emphasize that one birthday resolution, which never fails to yield specific dividend is the decision or resolution to plant one more seed in the garden of your personal philosophy of life. These seeds were highlighted and will be displayed on screen at the end of today's presentation, just to remind those who had requested whether they can make some notations with necessary amendments by themselves as to which type of seeds to sow in the garden of their personal philosophy of life. Or resolve to enhance our personal philosophy of life with a more evolved and balanced mystical character. There is a human tendency for those of us who have studied the Rosicrucian principles for a while to think and indeed assume that new members are already familiar with some basic tenets and guidelines for life, which we have endeavored to understand and put into practice for some years. I personally think this assumption is probably not right. From my experience over the years dealing with degree classes and open forum of questions, comments, and answers, I am satisfied even those of us who have been in the order for quite a while need to review the fundamental Rosicrucian principles from time to time. It is the reason virtual forum sessions on Zoom this year, I have proposed that we basics. Go back to basics. Hopefully, we should find this approach rewarding in terms of refreshing our memories about the fundamentals for living a mystical life. Today, we shall dwell on a mystical life by sharing the thoughts of our past imperator, Frater Ralph Maxwell Lewis. Although long-standing members may be familiar with what the mystical life is, we cannot guarantee that new members know what the mystical life is not. For instance, the mystical life is neither mysterious, nor is it magic or magical. Therefore, I'm asking that we all pay attention so that the question and answer session which follows more fruitful. Francis Rose, in the machine world, efficiency is said to consist of the coordination of all of the parts of a machine for some effectual purpose. An efficient complex machine consisting of gears, shafts, pistons, and driving wheels must have each of these parts not only operate or be in motion, but they must also function for the purpose which the machine was created. The efficiency of the machine consists in each part contributing to the whole, doing something for which the machine was brought into existence. Otherwise, if the machine merely runs, if it merely operates and accomplishes nothing, it is a waste of the energy of the mind of the designer and of all the minds that have contributed to its construction. It is also a waste of the valuable material of which the machine is composed. Now, Francis and Soros, if such is true in the machine world, it is more so in our individual lives. In living, then, efficiency consists of the application of our lives to some cosmic purpose to justify our existence. Presuming, therefore, that each one of us is a machine, it is not sufficient that we be healthy machines or that organically our function is correct, or that we have and maintain plenty of energy and vitality, or PEP, as it is commonly called. but that all of these things be used for a mission, for an end which we were individually created to serve. Consequently, an aspect of living, and one which is overlooked by most persons, is the mystical life. The mystical life provides the reason why we live. Mystical life determines the course of our individual lives and the use to which we should put our bodies and our animal vitality and magnetism. The mystical life requires certain preparation. If we must study the rules of diet, if we must study hygiene, if we must know the rudiments of good health to be healthy and physically normal, certainly we should give some thought and consideration to the mystical side of our existence as well. We must also prepare for it in an intelligent manner. Perhaps, fratres and sorors, the first requisite in preparing for the mystical life is to discard all of the popular conceptions as to what a mystic should be. The mystic is not one who fits into an objective pattern. He cannot be typed, that is, he has no characteristic role like Santa Claus or Father Time. The mystic is one who adopts a particular attitude of mind. Like everyone who has a noble ideal, he does not always have indications of it on his person. The mystic is a man, is a human being, that is, he's of species Homo sapiens like the rest of us. Consequently, he's very much a mortal, subject at times to all of the foibles and temptations of a human. He or she naturally has all of the physical variations to be seen in any passing throng of people. Further, the mystical life has no racial roots. Asiatic blood can bring forth no greater mystic than can the blood which flows through the veins of an Occidental. It is likewise an illusion to think that geographical location simulates the mystical attitude of mind. There is no special atmosphere in Tibet, Egypt, China, or India which imbues all who merely reside in it with mystical attributes. Like gold, the elements of mysticism are wherever you find them. That is, wherever you come to experience them. It is well to add that the attributes of mysticism are not necessarily inherited. The fundamental qualities are latent within every individual. In some persons, they might produce an orthodox religionist, actually unsympathetic toward the doctrines of mysticism. The rather unique comprehension of life, which a mystic is said to have, is not a cosmic endowment. Simply put, the mystical attitude of mind, which is displayed, is not a divine conception. The mystic is one who is evolved. He must use the faculties which he has and awaken the latent qualities and direct them in that channel which constitutes the mystical attitude of mind. The mystical approach to life is not a mysterious mantle that descends upon an individual and sets him off by intention from other men. In an intentional approach to the mystical life, therefore, it is first necessary to rid our minds of all prepossessions and predispositions of the opinions we have formed, the conclusions we have arrived at arbitrarily, and especially by way of hearsay. We must mentally disrobe, remove the cloak of custom, which we unconsciously had wrapped about ourselves, more firmly each year. We must free our minds of all such encumbrances and be prepared to accept only those things which, as the famous philosopher Descartes said, arouse within us an intuitive acceptance of them, a feeling that they are true and constitute real knowledge. Francis Bacon, eminent philosopher, and we might say father of our present method of science, adopted this method in arriving at scientific facts. He stated that man should read his mind of is in our minds out of fancy, out of suppositions, the idols of tradition, the things which we accept because they have been handed down, or because they have merely the authority of age to support them. We must approach life as though stepping from a dark chamber into a lighted one for the first time, without any action or as to what we are to see or hear, and then subject each experience to our own analysis, not colored with the analysis of others. The person who really wishes to approach the mystical life in a frank manner, with the hope of them being able to govern himself or herself properly, must not be a coward. He must not fear public opinion. He must not hesitate to oppose or challenge tradition. Have you ever stopped to realize what the real value or worth of tradition is? It is a benefit to man, and when it is a hindrance. Traditions are like rungs of a ladder. They represent the elevation of man. They are intended to prevent him from slipping backward, but they are not intended to hold man back. Whenever a tradition holds you fast so that you cannot raise yourself to the next rung, it then becomes a hindrance. We should look upon traditions as signs of encouragement. We should find in them a satisfaction because of the advancement that man has made. We should take from tradition the best that it has to offer and build upon it. It is necessary, therefore, that each of us take the traditions of the day and subject them to a personal examination to see, so far as we are concerned, why it is necessary that they should be abided by. If we can improve on the traditions, we should do so. If we cannot, we must not relinquish them unless they prove to be of no further value. Humans are possessed of reason, a faculty found also in lower animals besides man. I must employ that reason. We must not be like children and accept conditions and circumstances merely on faith alone. We must weigh them. The man or woman who does not employ this power of reason has not advanced beyond the child of 10. In fact, it is safe to say that such persons have not advanced much beyond the chimpanzee, which instinctively reacts to its environment as a small child will, not knowing why it does so, or without even being concerned with the reason. In our considerations of the mystical life, brothers and sisters, we must begin with man, simply because there is nothing more intimate, nothing to which you are more closely related, nothing that you can feel so strongly or analyze so carefully as yourself. Why begin with an analysis or an examination of the universe around you, with the planets overhead, or the other cosmic bodies, or the universal laws, or with reality generally? All things outside yourself are measured, after all, in terms of their value or relationship to you. The things you see, hear, feel, taste, and smell may have an existence outside yourself, but the form in which they are realized and the manner in which you react to them depend on your interpretation of them and your sense qualities. Therefore, since you measure by yourself these things that are outside yourself, it is best that you start with yourself and actually begin to study yourself. In beginning with man, you must realize that man alone is not divine. It is in one sense unfortunate that almost all religions and philosophies have built up the impression of the divine nature of man so strongly that in the minds of many people today, all things apart from what they term the soul of man are declared vulgar, as hardly worth the consideration of thought, except as we need them for our existence. But such a concept is an injustice to the infinite intelligence who conceived all. In the first place, it must be reasoned and realized that the multitude of things which exist apart from what is stated to be man's soul are not of man's creation and are not the result of effort of his mind. Consequently, they must necessarily be from that same source, that same infinite source from which all things come. Therefore, everything of which we have cognizance is by that reasoning of a divine source. It is also unfortunate that some persons refer to the acts of animals and of some types of beings, human beings, as ungodly. In each thing which has existence, there is instilled its function. And while it has that particular type of existence in its process of development, that function is natural to it and is not ungodly. Can we damn or condemn a barbaric people to oblivion because they conduct themselves and their lives in a manner which is in accordance with the intelligence which is theirs? Are they to be considered as any less divine in nature because they have not the ability to distinguish between the right and wrong, which we have conceived by virtue of a greater intelligence and a more advanced state? Will we like to think of ourselves, fraternism for us, as being considered profane, vulgar, and ungodly by a civilization of 1,000 years hence, because our acts today will fall short of their attainments? Will not our plea be that we acted in accordance with the best of which our nature was composed and of what constituted our inner intelligence? No being is ungodly unless it can be shown that he has the ability to ascertain the difference between right and wrong and then acts wrongly. Therefore, each class of people today, each race of people must be measured by its state of advancement and found guilty by that measurement alone. One of the Neoplatonic philosophers, the mystic philosophers, before the Renaissance of the Middle Ages, declared that man has been given will only so that he may choose the right course of action, so that he may follow what he understands to be right and to be good. Man is found to be guilty only when he directs that will in opposition to his understanding of what is good and what is wrong. So when we approach the mystical life and begin with man, we look upon all things as divine because they emanate from the same source. And no being is ungodly unless we're in a position to point out that he has directed his will in opposition to what he knows is best and proper. According to Islamic mysticism, which incidentally is a highly organized and inspiring system of instruction, there are 3 stages of the mystical life. Certain aspects are veiled in the beginning and in the middle. In the beginning period, external things, the things of the world, and temporal interests so occupy the consciousness, according to Islamic mysticism, that the inner sense of God is veiled from the consciousness. Man then has little concern for the spiritual values of the divine impulses. Later, in the middle period of existence, a transition occurs. The world becomes veiled because man has a sudden awakening. He has realization of his spiritual nature, and he takes such a delight in it that he adjusts his whole thought and living in accordance with the newfound and newly realized experience. He is inclined to neglect practical living, the realities of his everyday world. And so the veil again comes before his consciousness. This middle period of the mystical life is called by the Islamic mystics the period of intoxication. It is a period of mystical ecstasies and afflatus, when the consciousness takes wing and transcends all worldly interests, sometimes to the detriment of his welfare. In the final stage of the mystical life, however, the created things, the things of the world, no longer veil God, from the consciousness of the mystic. He is quite aware of the nature of God, but also his realization of God no longer veils his consciousness of worldly things. God is seen as the creator and the universe as created things. In other words, in the final stage of the mystic's life, a balance is struck and man has an equal appreciation of the law and the manifestation of the law. The final stage of the mystical life is appropriately called sobriety by Islamic mystics. It is the soberness of understanding, the temperance of understanding. It is neither the extreme objective consciousness nor the extreme of divine consciousness. Traditional mysticism may be reduced to these fundamental principles. The soul is the spiritual self of man. The soul is part of a universal soul, a soul which permeates the entire universe. That soul is God. The material world and the physical body are the negative side of this positive absolute soul or God, which permeates the universe, a sort of imperfection, a falling off from the goodness. And when the soul is embodied in a physical form or body, the human being, as a unity of both soul and body, is not perfect. The body, the material, must be brought into harmony with the soul, the immaterial. Man will be confined to a body in various lives as long as he permits the temptations, the desires, and appetites to dominate his nature. He must struggle to overcome them, to suppress them, to give himself over entirely to those spiritual urges within his own nature. These urges are the dictates of conscience, which finds its expression in ethical, moral, and religious conduct. Modern mysticism, which is based upon these old fundamental principles, does not state that the material body and the physical mundane world are without foundation or existence, that they are non-entities, non-beings, or evil. It does not state that they are unreliable and that we cannot perceive their true nature. They constantly change, as do the senses of man, and may not be tomorrow as we perceive them today. Therefore, no credence should be given to their manifestations. Modern mysticism recognizes them, however, as part of the universal plan, but imperfect, that is, less comprehensive in contrast to the mind or the intelligence of God, the Absolute. A study and an examination into this material mundane world is advocated so that man may try within his limited power to regulate it, to prevent it from controlling or dominating him. Mysticism advocates intensive study and learning so that man may know the relationship of this mundane material imperfect phase to the perfect absolute or God. Thus, modern mysticism declares that there is a duality of the universe in effect, but that in essence it is one. All things are of that one, although there are stages of its perfection. The material world and its manifestations are not considered as perfect as the spiritual world, yet they are of it. The duality enters into the conception by declaring, on the one hand, that the soul, a part of the absolute whole, is good, and that all else, in contrast, even though of it, is by graduated degrees less perfect. It behooves the individual, therefore, who declares himself to be a student of modern mysticism and an aspirant to the mystical life, to make a very thorough study of such terms and subjects as the Absolute, spiritual being, material realm, free agency, and the scientific attitude of mind. These fundamentals, and a few more like them, are the foundation stones of his philosophy, if he purports to be a mystical philosopher. He who has a thorough knowledge of these fundamentals will not find it difficult to assemble and reassemble them into a system that will help him to reach his goal in a rational manner. That goal, we presume, to be that inner satisfaction and attunement which the real mystics declared constitutes a sense of God. And now, Francis Rose, I want you to please sit relaxed. And in the exercise we are about to perform, which is to do with meditation, we are to see ourselves as mystical students, Rosicrucian students, aspiring to live the mystical life by aiding humanity, which includes all of us, and sending our thoughts of light, life, and love to all. And so, Francis and Soros, I suggest that with the first deep breath, inhaling slowly, we acknowledge the light of God within us and around us, so that when we are ready to exhale, our auras and entire beings become charged with the brilliance of divine light. With the second breath, let us acknowledge the vital life force, the breath of life within us, so that when we are ready to exhale, our auras and indeed our entire beings become charged with the vitality of divine life. And finally, with the third deep breath, let us acknowledge the love of God within us and around us, and so that when we are ready to exhale, our auras and indeed our entire beings become charged with the sublimity of divine love. Thus imbued and infused with the light, life, and love of divine effulgence, let us unite in invocation. May the divine essence of the cosmic infuse our beings and cleanse us from all impurities of mind and body, that we may enter the celestial sanctum and attune in pureness and worthiness. So mote it be. And now, Francis and Rose, let us visualize ourselves in a spherical ball of light. Above our heads, and ascending in consciousness over, above, and beyond where we are, above the country we are, above the clouds, and into that field of cosmic energy that is our celestial sanctum. Let us feel charged and in the position to radiate energy, light, healing through our planet, the Earth, our one world. And let all nations on earth, under the direction of their leaders in various spheres of life and living, be conscious of health for individuals and for nations, of happiness for each human being and communities, of harmony amongst people and amongst nations, of peace at the individual level and at the level of the collectivity. And finally, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with each of us. Thus imbued with feelings of healing and well-being, let us unite in prayer. God of our hearts, God of our realization, in whose consciousness we live and move and have our being, our help in ages past and our hope for years to come. We acknowledge your presence in our lives through time and space, wherever we are, and with hearts full of gratitude for our past, present, and future. We ask for your continued blessings upon our common humanity and each of us as citizens of the universe. Grant those who lead in all nations a sense of direction and focus for the welfare of our entire humanity. Harmonize and enrich our hearts and minds with your divine love and goodness. And let our acts of service be to your glory, the good of all, and the evolution of our soul personalities. So much it be. And now, fratres and sorors, let us gradually return to full objective consciousness and be aware of our physical surroundings. and now. May the grace of God sanctify our individual and collective achievement with the celestial sanctuary. So much it be. Brothers and sisters, if you look at the symbol on the screen, we should continue to radiate the light of healing, of strength, and of empowerment in our daily lives. Fellow human beings throughout the face of the earth. Going back to how I started, we have today been contemplating the mystical life, sharing thoughts of Imperator Ralph, past Imperator Ralph Maxwell Lewis, and also in the session, the forum session that we are to have to focus on the extent we can apply our Rosicrucian principles in living a mystical life that will be an asset to our common humanity. We'll appreciate at this time comments and questions that may arise from any participant.
We thank you very
Before
much,
that,
Amoswati.
I want to just go ahead.
Okay, we thank you very much, Amoswati, Grand Administrator, but you were trying to say something. You were still trying to add to the discussion, so I would wait.
Yes, I was trying to add that just in case it does not come up, but I want to add this, that the pandemic is not over, and as students, Rosicrucian students, aspiring to live a mystical life, we must exhibit responsible behavior. We must, as much as we can, observe the safety protocols that are in place, the World Health Organization, and the various centers for disease control in all nations of the world. We must spread the message that an epidemic or a pandemic of local or global dimensions must be taken very seriously, with petitions that those who are researching, I mean the health scientists, pharmacists, doctors, and so forth, come up with treatments, cures, vaccines that will help us contain and eliminate such pandemic from the face of the earth. Now, it would be irresponsible if any of us is among those who are spreading either conspiracy theories or the false approach to this issue of denial that there is nothing like such pandemic. Science has evidence to support not just its existence, but the quantum of damage it has done to the human race so far. And so it's our obligation to support the direction of science and protect others as well as ourselves from danger that may arise from this. And with the COVID-19 safety protocols in place and the restrictions we have placed for activities in our temples and various other public places, we must comply and do the needful to show example to others that by closing ranks, we can overcome the challenges of this era sooner than later. The opposite will mean elongating the crisis and submitting to losing more lives on this planet, which I think is totally unnecessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Grand Administrator, for today's forum with the theme, The Mystical Life. Distinguished fratres and sorors, we have heard our most of the Grand Administrator address us on this theme, and summarily, the mystical life justifies our existence. The mystical life provides the reason why we live. So it is now time for questions or comments. So far, we do not have any questions or any comments in the chat area or in the Q&A area. And I can see no hand up yet. So, most for the GA, if, okay. Please excuse me. I would like to unmute Frater Ogbe Ochai to speak.
Hello.
Oh, Sarah, I'm sorry about that. Please go on.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Rob.
Okay, I've got two questions. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes, I'm hearing you, Rob.
I'm a frater, not a soror. Anyway, the first question, when I was doing my initiation, well, I've not done it anyway because I'm far away abroad. The neophyte degree, there was a hymn, is it a hymn or a song to Ra or something like that? Now, I'm an atheist who...
Rosicrucian chant.
Hello?
Rosicrucian chant.
What?
There was Rosicrucian chant, eh?
Yes, something like that.
Rosicrucian chant, perhaps.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, I'm an atheist who wants to be a bit open and then come to see at least investigation. I like the Rosicrucian order. But I got a bit uncomfortable when I saw something to Ra, that Rosicrucian chant to Ra. I thought the Rosicrucian order is not a sectarian organization, so why should we have a chant to an Egyptian deity? So that's number one. Then number two, I understand we need to judge a people or a civilization or a society by the standard which they have been able to realize. But what do you do then when you live around a people who, by the virtue of what they do, and which is right in their conception, hurt you? What do you do?
Okay. The first question, the Rosicrucian order, AMOC being an acronym for Ancient Mystical Order Rosae Crucis, is not an organization of today. It is an ancient as well as a modern organization. We are analog as well as digital. And so when we are in the study of this organization, we must realize that the organization is a cultural, educational, mystical, philosophical, an initiatic order. For this reason, we go into the various traditions of our common humanity, which date back to remote antiquity. We also investigate the basis of all religious practices and therefore have an ontology. We probe into the nature of being and the nature of things. This means you are in an organization that has knowledge of various traditions throughout the world, including but not limited to the origin of all the religions of this world. We have unfettered access to sacred books, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, the Upanishads, sacred literature, right from the times of Hinduism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, and the Abrahamic religions, such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And this is a very expensive scope. You can expect anything. You can have chants, illustrate. We have various study channels to open the frontiers of your consciousness to universality. It is not good to have a closed mind. Only an open mind, like an open umbrella, can accommodate the secrets of this universe. Therefore, you must have an inquiring mind as a student member of this organization and be open to a study and investigation of all natural and spiritual laws without exception. This is how the Rosicrucian Order is registered. We are a literature-intensive organization. We are a research-oriented organization. Therefore, you must expect to have a lot of gist in the literature of this organization about various traditions and customs and practices. This is what will expose your consciousness from its limited capacity and nature at this time to a more all-encompassing nature, which in our hope and aspiration we refer to as cosmic consciousness. That is consciousness of the universe. So be open. As you progress in the studies, there will be many other things you will discover and which will delight you and make you to understand why in the preliminary stages we express this diversity. As for the second question, I can tell you that yes, we live in the midst of people, some of whom are very pleasant, lovely, and relate with us very well, and others who hurt us from time to time, just as perhaps knowingly or unknowingly, we too may hurt others. And the rule of thumb here is to be tolerant. Tolerance is a hard gospel. But if we lack the capacity to tolerate others who are different from us or even opposite to us in behavior, then it means we also lack the capacity to either forgive or even to love. And I can tell you that, if we do not have love within and around us, life may be very, very gloomy. And the light in us may not be sufficient to sustain life. So, generally speaking, we have little trite sayings. So long as there is life, there is hope. Trite sayings, if you have faith as big as a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Trite sayings that we love our neighbors as ourselves and do unto others as we like others to do unto us. Sayings like 3 things abide: hope, faith, and love, but that the greatest of them all is love, and so on and so forth. We must exhibit these qualities which constitute the mystical life to our neighbors, to our fellow human beings. unless we are hermits living in isolated places. It is here on earth, among fellow human beings, that we can develop and acquire self-mastery as a penultimate goal, and eventually the mastery of life as the goal that each human being should accomplish. I hope I've answered these questions and these particular two questions, and I'll be open to other questions. We have a few more minutes left.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Pleasure.
I'll be unmuting Frater Sam Ofoyandi. Okay. Okay.
Hello, go ahead, I'm hearing you.
Frater Sam is yet to unmute.
Oh.
So we'll be taking Frater Kennedy, Cliff Eribo. Please go ahead with your questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also thank the GA, actually commenting from England. My question is this. In trying to respect all creation, like the GA has stated in the discourse, with the need to meet our nutritional requirements, because we need
Frater Kennedy, we can't
you just
hear
faded
you.
off, Frater, I can't hear you.
Okay, he had already left the question in the Q&A area, I suppose. He's
okay.
Trying to find
Could
out.
you read it out?
Yes, please. He's trying to find out, in trying to respect all creation and with the need to meet our nutritional requirements, I constantly feel guilty in view of the fact that animals and plants are used to meet our needs. How do we deal with this guilt?
Okay. Normally, as mystic philosophers, we try to rationalize certain things. This is the reason why you have some persons who are vegetarians, you know. Among the various experiences we have undergone as a result of the pandemic, and even right there in England, Frater Kennedy, we had a screenshot, I think a video clip rather, of how when London was under lockdown, some birds that have avoided London streets were very much at home in the streets this time because human beings were not around. And they were applauded by London residents for having a field day. And it was obvious to us, and we all had this sense of guilt that we have deprived them of freedom of movement, even though by way of human rights, we insist upon our own freedom of movement, you know. But the traffic in London streets, as it is in major cities throughout the world, has deprived these creatures. We have done similar things to fishes in the rivers and seas and oceans, to lower species, various animals and all that, killing them to eat, and so on and so forth. And justification has been made by various persons who research in these directions, e.g. like survival of the fittest. And so the question is, why do we eat chicken? Because we are stronger. If not, they will overpower us and be the ones to eat us, etc. That putting everything in perspective, and you look at the support system, what the greens and vegetables do, deriving from the support from minerals and so on and so forth, and what the animals do and are able to feed and live, deriving from the support of these vegetables, grasses, and so forth. And so what human beings a little bit higher will do, deriving from the support of animals, to get protein and all that. Usually, in the evolutionary process, each human conscience will reach a stage where it becomes unbearable to accommodate certain things that are known to be normal or usual. And so, according to how you feel, whether it's some sense of guilt or as a result of some pangs of conscience, you have to act in accordance with your level of evolution. If it is no longer comfortable for you to do certain things, leave them. On the other hand, where it is necessary for your survival and for your system to function properly, then you will still need to be involved at those levels. Yes, normally, one who knows the law and yet violates the law suffers the most because of the excruciating feelings of guilt generated by the pangs of conscience. But our understanding should be a little bit more complete. Having been raised in a particular way, how much can we advance ahead of it and live a balanced life? That is, avoiding the extremes, not being fanatical in our approach to any of these issues. Because even with the best of intentions, sometimes when we meditate deeply and come out of such meditation, we find that there are very many things that we are doing wrong daily. And it may not be a loud thing. For instance, if you live in a compound with some green around you, the mere act of jogging on the grass means you are crushing certain insects to death. When your conscience becomes so sensitive that crushing insects to death is a challenge to you, you have to be really very careful. How careful can we be, if we drive this discussion to its logical conclusion along such lines? So you have to weigh many factors as they affect your own life, because make no mistake about it, mosquitoes do not need your permission to bite you. And they all also want to survive. So weigh these things, and I know it's a delicate and dicey question, but with meditation on things like this, we can strike a harmonic mean between the extremes of thought that provoke us into living a certain type of life. Thank you.
Thank you, our most worthy Grand Administrator. I will be merging some questions in the Q&A
Please.
area. Okay. Ezosa is asking, some of us struggle with balancing our mystical life / work and our mundane life activities. Please help address this matter. That is one. And then I'll be adding Kola Belu's question. Thank you very much, sir, for the series of illuminating lectures we have been receiving since last year. It is gratifying for me to say that I've been part of all the lectures. You did mention that a man should be judged by adherence to his own conception. As long as he is in tune with his own belief, he is therefore not guilty. What happens when his beliefs are opposed to the well-being of others? Thank you once more, and peace profound.
Thank you. We have gone beyond the realm of justice being in the interest of the stronger, for instance. So, no human being is an island unto himself or herself. There are rules and regulations. There are laws, man-made laws, as well as natural and spiritual laws, universal laws. In the final analysis, man-made laws may not be justice, natural laws may be justice, but we live here on earth and with fellow human beings. So if in fact, you find yourself in a situation in which for your own strong beliefs, you are not able to live according to the laws in society, be certain that there is going to be a certain court action, you'll be found guilty, and you have to face the sentence from the judge. Which means, therefore, that we must have a process of rationalization. And we said you should employ your reasoning faculties. You cannot be the only person right and place yourself over above the laws that govern the community. You do not live in isolation, you live with others. And so you must flow with these others in your lifestyle in terms of obeying the laws. It is a requirement for any member of the Rosicrucian Order Amok to abide by the rules and regulations and the laws of the land in which he or she has the privilege of being a resident or working, your normal productive means of livelihood. And so that is one. I want to use this opportunity to go back to the very first question in which I thought I had the questionnaire saying he or she, I couldn't quite, the voice was something else, saying that he was an atheist. In the Rosicrucian Order, we do not admit atheists. That is to say, persons who do not believe in the existence of a supreme being, universal intelligence, and the laws of the cosmic system. That somehow that there is a force, an energy, a power over and above and beyond human beings. There are very many people who say that they are atheists, but actually they are not. I have interacted with one or two. One of them had a school at Ikene. Some of you will know him. He was an avowed atheist. The wife also was an avowed atheist. But ironically, they said they believe in man. And I said, okay, if you believe in man, and according to the scriptures of all religions, the human being was made in the image and likeness of God, then you believe in what God has made. You believe in yourself. And that is okay. Deductively somehow, and by implication, you believe in God. So some persons may say they are atheists, whereas actually, if you hold them to a serious discussion, you find that they believe in a power over, above, and beyond themselves. And to that extent, it's either they don't know the definition of atheist or what it means, or felt that since they don't believe in Jesus Christ or in any other prophet or so, that translates to being an atheist. Atheist means much more than that. So I figure it out that if you were admitted into the Rosicrucian Order, a certain basic requirement, which is normally exerted in the application form, must have gone along those lines. Back to the first part of the current question on work-life balance, we all face this challenge. Living in a world which everybody is struggling, hustling for through a productive means of livelihood, how to balance our spiritual aspirations with the material needs or wants. And it's a continuous assessment. That was one of the reasons we talked about natal days and New Year resolutions in our last outing. We think every day offers another beginning. We should continue to work upon ourselves, what we want, what we need through our productive means of livelihood, and how to balance our struggle for material well-being and comfort with our spiritual aspirations so that we live a balanced life. It means waking up each day with the will and determination to forge ahead. And before you retire at the end of the day, weighing what you have done on a scale, mental scale, and satisfying yourself that you apportion a certain time for your physical well-being, some type of physical exercise, for your material well-being, some productive means of livelihood, for your mental well-being, reading something, and for your spiritual well-being, prayer, meditation, etc. Doing all these things in right proportions as much as you can create time and plan your life helps or enhances your capacity for work-life balance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amboswadi Grant Administrator. I want to unmute a frater to ask his question directly. Please, we should all try to make it real quick. Frater Kingsley Ukwadia, please, can you unmute and ask your question? Yes, we can hear you, Frater Kingsley.
Yeah, my question is straight.
Go on, we can hear you.
Okay. I wouldn't want to draw us back, but the first question, the first caller asked, I have interest in that question. The chant to Ra.
That is.
Go on, we can hear you. The chant to Ra.
About.
Frater Kingsley, please, can you go on? We can hear you.
Okay, the chant to Ra. Now, is Ra a god, or is Ra the universal God that made all things? Because that chant to Ra, because I've come across it in my monograph, it now seems that this Ra is a sun god that one is worshiping. Is this supposed to be so?
Is that your question? Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
That is my question.
Yes, that's his question.
Okay. My understanding is that the first question was talking about. Good. So now, in the Egyptian, remember that in fact, civilization began in Egypt, and you know this. At least so historians and historiographers, as well as our Rosicrucian ancestors tell us. Egypt was and is the cradle of modern civilization. In those days, there were a multiplicity of gods. There was polytheism, belief in the existence of many gods. And the original Egyptians, and especially their pharaohs, and especially Pharaoh Thutmose III, appreciated the fact that this multiplicity of gods with a small g, I'll spell it, meant receiving knowledge or consolation from various sources of these gods. They will appease these gods from several ways. Now, the belief is in the existence of God through several agencies. Pharaoh was highly exalted because the Pharaoh was seen to an average Egyptian as a representative of God on earth. They saw emanations and rays from the sun each morning. And as soon as there was sunrise, all the mysteries of darkness disappear, and you can see life rejuvenated, revitalized at all levels. And so, to the sun god called Ra, and the rays emanating from this sun god, life is brought back daily. At sunset, Ra is resting, and so everywhere is dark and all that. They observed all this and they worshiped several gods until the era of Amenhotep IV, who changed his name to become Akhenaten, after decreeing that of the many gods, there must be one God that overrides all. And this God shows glory through the sun. This pharaoh, Amenhotep IV, who changed his name to Akhenaten, and who was recognized as the first individual thinking person to be able to have the strength of his conviction to enforce this belief throughout the land that there's one God, not the many gods, felt that the glory of this God manifested to humanity through the sun. He was not worshiping the God, worshiping the sun, but worshiping the one and only God whose glory radiated to humanity through the sun. And this was the metamorphosis or change from polytheism to monotheism, belief in the existence of a one God. This pharaoh is traditionally recognized by the Rosicrucian order, ancient mystical order Rosicrucis, as our first Grand Master. And the hymn to Aton, the hymn to Aton, can be seen in some of the Psalms of the Bible, of the Christian Bible even, in a particular way, meaning that there has been a sort of link from pristine times to now in terms of adoration to God. These are hymns. In various other religions, you will see hymns and chants, especially in Buddhism and of course in modern day Christianity, several hymns in adoration to this God. So what is our concern? Our concern is not the name that any person will call God, because you see, God is God, and the approaches to worshiping God may come from all these religions. All these various religions of the world acknowledge God as being on the throne and being worthy of worship, deification, and all that. And therefore, you should take it that when you are talking about hymn to Ra, it's just like saying the Psalm of David in praise of God, and so on and so forth. These are psalms or poems, praising the one and only living God, or whatever God that these people want to worship. Back here in Nigeria, for instance, you have in the western part of this country, Ifa, and in Ifa religion, a native, an African traditional religion, which is recognized, of course, you have very many chants. You can have them chanting in veneration of this God. If we were to introduce more concepts in those degrees of our order where we study comparative religion. With time, we'll be able to put in, the concepts of several other religions. But we have focalized primarily on the more recent ones. And you will notice from the lessons that the idea is to say that people may believe in God in several ways. As I normally say, the search for God may be a collective endeavor, but the discovery of God will always remain a strictly personal experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amos, for the Grand Administrator. I will be taking the comments that was left in the chat area, and the person has decided to remain anonymous. And he has said, greetings, Amos, for the Grand Administrator, Fratres and Soras. Thanks for this timely message, and especially your insights that we need to remain mindful of what the mystic is not. The reminder that the scientific method is a valid tool in addition to others in our bags that a true mystic philosopher may use. That is his observation, and also the Grand Administrator. We'll be taking 2 more questions or comments.
That what?
Okay, that is his observation.
Okay, observation, not question.
Yes. No, not question. So what I'm saying now is we'll be taking 2 more questions. Okay, his observation is that
okay.
The reminder that the scientific method is a valid tool in addition to others in our bags that a true mystic philosopher may use.
Okay.
That is it, yes. Okay, so we'll be unmuting Frater Babatakwe Ogunowo to ask his question or make his comment. Frater Ogunowo, please. Oh, wow.
Hello, Grand Chancellor Ogunowo, waiting to hear you.
Okay. I suppose he's experiencing a bit of a network
If
issue.
he's trying to adjust his devices. Yes, so you can take the other person.
Yes. Okay, Frater Columbus Ohiri. Please unmute and ask your question.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, greetings, my respected GA, Fratres and Soras. Actually, mine is not a question, but a comment concerning the frater that asked the question about the chant to Ra. Actually, I happened to think like him before until when we studied the religion, book 7 onto the I grant. Then my perception about that issue changed. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Frater Ohiri.
Thank you.
He said he was actually thinking that way until he studied religion and as well religion and onto the I grant. So Amos for the Grand Administrator, one final question, and I think we'll be calling it a day. Or should I say a night, since it's night in Nigeria. Okay, I'll be merging about 3 questions from the question and answer area. One is from Basil. He's asking, is the story in the Genesis, the creation and the tree of life, or the good and evil, a proverb? That is one. Then another from Umaru Bobman.
That's what?
Like, is the story in the Genesis, in the book of Genesis, the creation?
Again,
okay. Is the story in the Genesis, the creation and the tree of life, or good and evil, a proverb.
Yeah.
That is one. Then Umar is asking, can a member of Amok be a parish pastor in any Pentecostal church or be an imam in any of the mosque? That is two.
Whether I mean
That's
be a parish
pastor or an imam.
Yes. No, membership in Amok consists of persons who are various walks of life, and that includes religionists of various faiths. You know, whether it's Buddhism or Judaism or Christianity or Islam, we have members of Amok who are in these various religions, some of whom are pastors or bishops or imams, etc. You know, this is according to their own conviction. The order does not discriminate as to a Christian and a pastor or a bishop. You know, that should not interfere with your membership or vice versa. The same thing if you're an imam or a rabbi, or, you know, so our membership cuts across religious barriers. And pertaining to the first question concerning the tree of life, tree of knowledge of good and evil and all that, and whether it's a proverb, what you must understand is that Genesis is another word for beginning and so forth. And that the Bible may be interpreted as several levels in an ascending scale. Maybe there will be about 12 or so different levels of interpretation for the Bible. And according to your level of comprehension and understanding, you will go higher and higher and see areas in which some of such references may be seen as allegories. And you will have a deeper meaning for it. Certainly at the level of kindergarten or for basic education about religion, you'll have to take it as it is. And as you grow in life and in comprehension and understanding, more and more of the so-called mysteries will give way to real knowledge that brings about conviction and confidence in the way that you live your lives. So at certain levels, it could be seen as proverbs, at certain levels, it could be seen as, and at a certain level of understanding, still something much higher than that. You know, so not only the Bible, but sacred literature, whether you are looking at the Bible or the Upanishads or the glorious Quran, you know, it's not a one size fits all. Each person, according to his understanding and evolution, will read the scriptures from a more profound or less profound sense, depending. Thank you very much for this era of this session of question and answers in this Zoom. If there are some comments, Nefertiti, I will take them. Otherwise, I will do a closing benediction.
Okay, thank you very much, also the GA. Fraternat is asking, we have some questions I feel we should attend to. Fraternat is asking, okay. The mystical life is universally experienced by all those who undertake its path. This would be the same for the neophyte who crosses the portals of the Rosicrucian order and is expressed by the individual through their thoughts, words, and deeds. This was the case for the Master Jesus, Sir Francis Bacon, and Ralph M. Lewis. However, each experiences it according to their own level of evolution. If possible, please expand on the nature of the evolution of the soul personality and the mystical life.
Okay, as stated already and previously, that there is but one soul in the universe, and that is the soul of God. And that each of us has an extension of that soul in our beings as human beings. This soul in the human being is as perfect as the one from which we emanated. However, in the process of adjusting to the imperfection in an imperfect world, having taken on the physical body, which is the cross we carry in an incarnation, our understanding of life generally and how we react to this life in the process of self-mastery must be commensurate with our level of evolution. And therefore, that is what brings about the difference between us and some other human being. We are different soul personalities in this context. And as we make an effort to approach the perfection within us, and that expresses its light, small or big within us, we rise in the ladder of spiritual evolution from a lower to a higher status with time and experience. Basically, that is how the soul personality grew. We learn through the tests, trials, temptations, and tribulations of our mortal existence, and we can accelerate this by being members of a mystical organization like the Rosicrucian Order Amok, so that the experiences of our predecessors and comparing notes through the monographs we receive, and the monographs that are consecrated to truth and dedicated to every Rosicrucian, we grow in learning, in practice, and in experience and exposure, and therefore are able to accomplish more for ourselves and humanity by making good use of our subliminal faculties, capacity for concentration, for contemplation, for visualization, for meditation, for prayer, for attunement, etc. And by sowing seeds, good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, we lay a very good foundation for harvesting from the bounties of the cosmic, the fruits of what we have sown as seeds. And so in our character and expression and willingness to serve, we exhibit or tend to exhibit a higher degree of evolution than some others. And the thing here is not to compete with others per se, but to ensure that day in, day out, from one week to the other, 1 month to the other, 1 year to the other, we are in a process of self-improvement, being a better you tomorrow than today, a better you next year than this year, a better you this incarnation than previously. So this is how it goes. And here in the Rosicrucian Order Amok, we commit ourselves to self-mastery if we are seriously on the path, getting to know ourselves and our environment, and in the process, getting to know the modus operandi of natural and spiritual laws, and flowing with them rather than at variance or out of harmony with them. Therefore, we have the capacity to experience in our lives greater health, greater happiness, greater peace of mind, and therefore overall well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Amoswadi GA. So I'll just model up the last questions, about 4 questions in one, because to me they are related. So you have Amok as a school, must each student accept its teachings hook and sink? That's one. Then how do one keep the mind calm when meditating? Then there's another one. Does Amok teach astral/soul projections? And then, is it advisable for a beginner to read books on mysticism like reading J.J. Witt's The Wisdom of the Mystic Masters. I'm also the GA.
Okay, let me see how
Yes,
fast
and
I
then
can go with this.
one more to add to it.
Yes.
How can one visualize and manifest and get connected with the universe and create their own world? So that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
First of all, let me say that we are trying to see whether we can keep these sessions to say 1.5 hours maximum, so that, for instance, we know that there are other things for the members to do, maybe attend to their sanctum nights or do some other things with family or so on and so forth. But I'm quite open to this. I know that some persons will normally leave if they have some other things to do. The first is whether Amok as a school and with its teachings expects members to accept hook, line, and sinker what it teaches. The answer is a definite no. We say that members should have an open mind. That is, they should not come with a load of biases and prejudices and phobias and complexes about certain do's and don'ts, because we don't have dogmas. The Rosicrucian either knows or he does not know. What he knows, he applies, and what he does not know, he investigates. So we are a school of learning and a university of life. And so each member is encouraged to challenge the teachings, beg to disagree when necessary, and then give time to see whether subsequent lessons will corroborate what is in his mind or reinforce the original concepts that has been discharged to him. So on the basis of his assessment, or her assessment, members may disagree, and then we are a research-oriented organization. We are literature-intensive. We must continue to read and study and apply what we know to be valid knowledge in our daily lives. Issues pertaining to soul travel or astral travel, there are various terms used in these areas. But I want you to know that from the Rosicrucian point of view, every human being is into these experiences. If you dream, if you ever have dreams, and most, if not all human beings do have dreams, and we know that, then there is a form of experience that gives you the feeling of being out of the body when you are asleep. And you wake up and find that you are back to your bed, etc., and all that. We talk about dreams and how to more relevantly learn about the psychic body, direct it, and the consciousness of the human being, and to be able to work with it within and around ourselves. And like we did in the closing Celestial Sanctum exercise, be able to project it and then regulate it and be in charge of it, because we own it. And that we do without any fears, because there is no harm following a system of instruction. Keeping the mind still, yes, we teach that through the techniques of concentration and of meditation. Any average human being, and nobody grows out of it, will have a barrage of thoughts at any given point in time. The technique of keeping the mind still is a mystical one. And we can devote 1 or 2 hours talking about it, and more important than talking about it is following simple techniques for being in meditation, so that we can still the mind, keep it calm, for you to remain cool, calm, and composed and do things. Very simple techniques are involved, and these are taught in the monographs. And then there was this issue of reading some other books and so forth. We've said it in the message of today. We advocate intensive reading. Intellectual indolence is not useful in mystical practice or in the work of our organization. Each student must diligently study and not feel bad about it, because knowledge, of course, is power. And knowledge of the good things that are taught by the Rosicrucian order empower us to be able to render great service to others. There was a last one through this. I'm not quite sure I got it.
Okay.
But at least the first 4 questions I have handled that
Yes.
you ruled into.
Thank you very much, most for the GA. The last question was almost similar to the one of keeping calm. Adamu Musa is asking, I wanted to know how to concentrate and visualize and also manifest my energy to connect to the universe.
I can tell you that I cannot improve upon what is in the monographs. And from the very first monograph, members are being encouraged to learn to concentrate, focalization of thought, and all that. And within the very first few lessons, we are taught the overall exercise, which if you are present or participate in the next GA's forum, which is 2 weeks from now, hopefully I'll be talking about something that is basic, because I've told you from the beginning of this presentation today that we want as much as possible to go back to basics, no matter how advanced we think we are. And such a review would be important. For instance, it seems to me that very many of our members seem not to know the difference between God and the cosmic. And so we can address that hopefully in the next outing, 2 weeks from now, and then some other areas that are similar. And I think by going back to basics and addressing these fundamental issues, mental clarity will come to each of us, no matter how long we've been in the order. And the way forward in mystical progress will be clearer to each of us. The techniques are all laid out in the principles. And I know that those of you who have access to affiliated bodies in your area also have the opportunity to hear from the respective class masters of the various degrees of study in the affiliated body in a forum session, greater in-depth and insight into how the principles work. And so I thank you all for a very pleasant evening. I've learned a lot from the questions and the exchange of ideas. And I know that it is time for us now to do some other things. If you want to, in the mood you are, go into your sanctum, why not? If on the other hand, you want to just be with family and have dinner and a pleasant evening, why not? And so from me to all of you, I appreciate your being present. And I ask that we all now sit relaxed and turn our consciousness inwards. God of our hearts, God of our realization, we are thankful for the opportunity we have to exchange ideas and intelligence in this forum today. Grateful for the privileges of membership of our organization and our aspirations for the light of knowledge and the illumination of wisdom that emanates from you and you alone. May our acts of service ever be to your glory, the good of all, and the evolution of our soul personalities. So much it be.
So much it be. Thank you very much, our most worthy Grand Administrator. And we also want to use this opportunity to thank every participant here.
It's okay.